Shit Together with me, Caitlin O'Ryan, the podcast that celebrates not having your shit together. On today's episode, we have Peter Bennett. He is best known for being on the most recent season of RuPaul's Drag Race UK, where he was put into drag for the first time by Michael Maroli. He and other volunteers from Switchboard, an LGBTQ+ helpline, were invited to take part in the makeover challenge to raise awareness of the charity's incredible work. Peter was born in West Yorkshire and grew up in the 60s and 70s at a time where it was very difficult to be accepted as a gay man. We touch a lot in this episode on what that was like for Peter and how he navigated the difficult AIDS period, toxic shame and society's ignorance towards homosexuality. Some of the subject matters are quite difficult to listen to, but I'm so grateful to Peter for sharing with us his experience. And sadly, it's as important as ever that we have these conversations so that we can move towards a more accepting and loving society. I hope you enjoyed the episode and getting to know Peter a bit more. Here's Peter. Northerner in the room.
Excellent, yes,
yeah?
Thank you.
And you were saying that you're Yorkshire, so you're White Rose.
I am indeed,
yeah?
Yes.
So we're at war, basically.
Well, you know the best thing to come out of Lancashire?
What's that?
The road to York.
We'll edit that out.
Yes,
because,
please do.
Get out immediately. Okay, so well, thank you so much for agreeing to come onto the podcast. I was recommended you through our very good mutual friend Hugh Ross.
Oh yes, fabulous.
Who has been a past guest.
Right.
And funnily enough, I had literally just watched the RuPaul episode.
Oh gosh.
With you in it.
Right.
And had fallen in love with you.
Oh.
Much like you say that Cameron Diaz has fallen in love. Tell us that story.
Well, I'm trying to find it.
Yeah.
But someone said to me that on a podcast somewhere or a recording, Cameron Diaz is a big fan of the franchise, but she particularly likes the UK version. And she said, apparently, and I really love Peter, Peter that's on the UK version.
That is such a claim to fame. Cameron Diaz knowing who you are.
Yeah, yes.
Wow. On a scale of shit to together, how are you feeling today?
I think I'm feeling a little bit shitty.
Okay. Why is that?
Does anybody want an extra day in February?
It's the leap year today.
It's the 29th of February, and we don't really want it, do we?
Isn't it supposed to be quite lucky though?
Well, not if you're born on the 29th, because then you only get one birthday in 4 or something.
You're only 1 year old every 4 years, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think my emotions go with the weather. Right. And last week, I think we felt like spring was on its way and it got warmer.
The plants all got confused.
They did, and blossoms started to come out, and now it's just. Looking out this window here, it's cold, wet, windy, so I'm feeling a little bit shitty.
Well, that's just Black Horse Road, isn't it?
Yeah, and also I like to travel now. I'm retired, and my partner and I we've done a lot of travelling over the last 5 or 6 years, and it's always nice to anticipate a holiday that you've booked ahead.
Yes.
It's like saying, can't wait, in 8 weeks we're going, in 7 weeks we're going, and we've got no holiday plans. So I'm thinking, nothing to look forward to in terms of holiday-wise. Yeah. And I've got a friend in Yorkshire who says, Peter, there's no pockets in Shrouds, so I want to get spending. I want to get out. And
where would you go if you could?
Well, we've been to India 3 times, which we love.
Oh, gorgeous.
Yeah, we've been to Australia, we've been to Vietnam, we've been to South America, and we've just come back. Here is me complaining about no holiday. We came back a month ago from Africa.
Oh, wow, whereabouts?
Well, we did Cape Town, then we went to the Victoria Falls in Zimbabwe, then we did a safari in Pilanesberg, just near Kruger, then we went over to Botswana and did a river cruise. So, yeah, we had a fab time, so I shouldn't really be feeling shitty.
I know, you've got to ground yourself sometimes a little bit.
I've got Mexico on the list.
I'm going to Mexico next week.
Are you?
Yeah.
Are you?
I am,
Wow.
It was a last minute. I keep telling people that I booked a one-way flight, but I'm just leaving out the detail that I have to come back 2 weeks later. It makes it sound
Where are you going? Are you
glamorous.
touring? Or
I'm going to Mexico City.
Oh, yeah, nice.
It's my friend's 30th. I'm going to be there for a few days and then head back before I film again.
Right.
Yeah.
Great, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah,
That's on my list, and Thailand is, and Sri Lanka.
Oh, amazing.
So that,
yeah.
And I've got a pile of ironing at home.
Yeah.
There's all that
You've
ironing.
always got to come back, don't you?
Yeah, and so I'm thinking, it's a bit shitty day today.
Were you able to travel much when you were younger, or is that kind of part of you making most of it now?
I think, I probably didn't travel much. It was kind of, but certainly as growing up as a boy, you didn't fly because that was for posh people.
Yeah.
So we didn't even go to like Spain, Mallorca, where my posh friends might go. But I didn't. We went to the Isle of Wight.
Oh, really?
Now, but my parents made us believe we were going abroad because we had a car and we went to the Southampton onto the car ferry, and my sister and I would say, "Oh wow, I'm now going to this island.
Yeah.
So it was really exciting. So it felt like a little
exotic,
bit, leaving England
and
going to this island on its own. So that was our little trip abroad, really. Yeah. So yes, so travelling, I had quite a stressful job. I was a chartered building surveyor, and I don't know, I just kind of didn't relax hugely on touring holidays.
Right, okay.
So you tended to be a place I would want to go to, put things down and just relax, around a pool. And it's only in the last years since I've retired, the last 10 years, that we've gone more exotic and we've travelled more and seen more.
Because that's part of it, isn't it? Like sometimes now you go on holiday to like a city break or something, you need a holiday after the holiday.
You do,
because
you do.
It's so exhausting.
Yeah.
So, okay, so obviously we know you from RuPaul. Do you want to tell us a bit about that episode?
Yeah. I volunteer for Switchboard, which is the LGBT helpline charity.
And how long have you been doing that for?
About 9 years now. I joined them when I retired because I could give back and I had more time. But as a result of being a member of Switchboard, they do one episode, about 5 to 8 episodes in, where they make over somebody.
Yeah,
it's called
the Family Resemblance episode.
It's a makeover challenge, and they bring in 5 people. And this year, they brought in Switchboard volunteers. Now, previous years, because of COVID, they'd had to limit it to who they brought in.
Right.
And one year it was their mothers.
Right.
And one year it was the makeover team that's in the programme.
Yeah.
And this was the first year when they felt post-COVID they could actually bring in people from outside. So we came in, 5 of us, quite a mixed range of us. I'm representing the cis, white, old, gay man. There's a lovely bisexual woman. There's a black lesbian. There's there's quite a chunky guy, young guy called Jamie. There's sort of
an array of people.
There was, and we're brought over there. We filmed at Pinewood. And you're introduced to the Queens. They made it look like it was a random introduction, but we don't think it was.
Okay, you think you're assigned?
Yeah, they did like a mock thing where they had to dial a number 1 to 5, and whoever they dialed, they got through to one of us.
Okay, that's interesting.
But what was interesting is about a week or 2 before we appeared, we had to submit our statistics.
Oh, statistics of what?
Like legs, length, shoe size, head,
measurements.
chest. Yes. And it was interesting that when we met the Queens, I don't know, this is secret information.
The tea.
When we met the Queens, the costumes that they brought in and prepared for the makeovers sort of happened to fit.
Okay.
Because Gemma's 5 foot nothing, and if she'd got my, my costume, it wouldn't have fit. And the first thing Michael Maruli was my queen. The first thing he said to me was, "What size shoes are you?" And I said, "I'm 9." He says, "Oh, that's good, yes, because I'm a 9, and the boots I've got you are 9.
Great. Okay.
So I think the matching was a bit of
RuPaul's a magical place, though.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was. It was extraordinary.
I wouldn't put it past that. Everything just works out there.
Yeah. Well, she's fed a lot of the funny lines.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of stopping and so it's not as impulsive as it appears.
No way.
Of course.
Gosh. Yeah.
But what it did to me, and I think I got quite a good edit because they focused on my story quite a bit in the final programme, was I suppressed a lot of my sexuality throughout most of my life.
Right.
And I've got the most amazing coming out story, which I'll tell you in a minute.
Can't wait.
But I suppressed it, and I went into quite a butch job, as a chartered building surveyor.
Yeah.
When I joined the company, they said to me, "Well, here's your overalls, here's your hard hat."
Wow.
I wanted to say, I've got a hard hat in my dressing up box.
YMCA?
Yeah. So it was a butch job. And so then I ran a team of builders, a team of surveyors. And I hid my sexuality because in those days you thought that if they knew you were gay, in fact, we didn't even call ourselves gay then. Gay came a bit later. Yeah. If they knew you were a homosexual, you probably wouldn't have the respect. Yeah. Or they'd turn around and say, "I'm not doing what you say," Yeah. And so... yeah, I buried it. I hid it. Not to my parents, which I came out to, but generally through growing up. Yeah. And what this programme did, the RuPaul's thing, was I've never worn heels before. Okay. I've never dragged up.
Neither have I, to be fair. I've never worn heels, really.
Fuck off heels. They were
they were huge.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
And I was telling Ru, as you say, and when they put this huge wig on, I think it cost about 700 quid, this red wig, really good quality hair. I mean, I don't know much about wigs, but I could tell it wasn't like nylon-y thingy. And they put this wig on and there's some earrings, and then RuPaul did this little interview around the table. I can't remember whether this was cut, and said, "So how are you feeling, Peter?" And I said, and I did this hair flick.
Yeah,
I was
thinking, remember that.
Yeah, I was thinking, well, where does that come from? So like a little bit of a, and I was a bit camp, and I was a bit catty. I was thinking, wow, where have you been all this time? This sort of feminine side to me.
Yeah.
And the programme did bring a little bit of that out, and I think Ru used that as part of just explaining, what would you say to yourself now as a young boy? Because the only kind of little gay release I used to have was I used to lip sync myself in my bedroom to Liza Minnelli, and I could rattle off. Yeah, I could literally, I could rattle off all the lyrics to a concert she did called Liza with a Z.
Right.
And by coincidence, and nobody remembers this, do you remember what name I was?
It was Liza Minnelli?
No, well, it was linked to Liza Minnelli, because he's called Michael Maruli.
Oh, there we go, yeah.
Well, he said, I've got a name for you, and it's Giza Minuli.
Oh,
and I
that
thought,
was it.
what? No one will remember. Even Americans don't know what Giza is.
Yeah.
And I said, that's interesting because it sounds like Minnelli. And he said, yes. And then that's when I said, well, it's funny because I used to lip sync. And one of her songs is people mispronounce her name and call her Minuli.
Right, okay.
They call her Lisa Minuli.
Wow.
So that's where he came from, Giza Minuli. But nobody remembers it.
Wow.
It's a name that's not going to be, it's not going to be retained, shall we say?
It's no Peter that Cameron Diaz
I know, there isn't.
That's so amazing though, and that's what they often say, isn't it? That why people enjoy drag so much is because it unlocks a part of themselves that they've had to push down, and it gives them permission to fully explore their personality.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's used to comic effect You'll hear young gay boys surviving in the playground saying, I was the comic. Right. I don't know if you've heard Alan Carr say, he had to be the Joker in order to battle off the fact that he was called Pufter by the big boys. Yeah. And so drag was a sort of element of being able to be quite powerful. Yeah. Because when you see drag queens in their heels and their wigs, they're pretty formidable. Yeah. And you don't mess with them. And absolutely. I think it gives them a power to some degree of saying, I'm a strong, independent woman.
And you're right, there's such a strong sense of humour within the community as well, isn't there? And it makes sense for what you're saying, that it's a way to rebut the criticism that you might receive. Yes. Yeah. And
it's really sad, Caitlin, at the moment. There's a chill wind now blowing against rights for trans and cross-dressers, and the simple thing of drag queens, who, I don't know if you've heard of drag queen story time. Yeah. Well, that's got a backlash now. Yeah. Parents saying, I don't want my children being influenced by those people. Like we're going to turn children into drag queens.
It's crazy,
I mean, sorry, children have been to pantomimes.
I know,
with a dame, a man dressed as a dame and a woman dressed as a principal boy. And no one said then, well, that's a bit offensive or that's wrong. So there are some states in America at the moment that are actually banning drag queen shows or not allowing them to be in towns or cities or operate under certain licenses because they think it's going to corrupt people. Yeah. But there's certainly a backlash on story time with a drag queen as being something that, why can't a child sit down and be sort of see this magnificent person telling them a story, enveloping imagination and thinking, wow, what do they want? Their school teacher sitting there?
I know, it's crazy.
And it just opens up a wonder of Santa Claus.
But imagination and permission for a child to grow up and be whatever they want to be, really. Yes. And you'll be accepted.
Exactly.
That's what's so beautiful about the show, isn't it? And I think that's why it attracts such an audience, such a loyal audience, is because people are crying out for that, I think, as well.
And I think RuPaul last week, on receiving an award, made some remark about, if you want to be who you want to be, we're fighting against it at the moment in terms of acceptance. And it's the same with trans rights. At the moment, there's a backlash against people transitioning. There's the whole backlash against the pronouns. He, him pronouns. She, her, they, them. That was more acceptable 5 years ago than it is now.
It's wild, isn't it? I think people are so terrified of what they don't know and change. And the power that change can bring. And it feels now particularly that it's the last kind of showdown of white cis straight males trying to hold on to power, because I think they're feeling so threatened that they're scapegoating anything that might upset the status quo.
Exactly. It's woke is a beautiful, kind thing.
Yeah.
And now woke has become a dirty word, and it's been used by the community to say, oh, that's very woke. And so to be anti-woke is cool. To call somebody a snowflake. Yeah. Snowflakes are people that care about people. Yeah. And that's so they're actually, it's become fashionable to say, oh, that's the woke brigade. Yeah. And you know what? You think, why is it irritating you? Yeah. What harm is wokeism doing?
Because you feel threatened.
What it's doing is making life a little bit easier for somebody who has an experience that you know nothing about.
Exactly.
And yet you don't like them having it.
Yeah, it's wild. Okay, what does having your shit together mean to you then?
Having my shit together, I think it's an internal thing. It's a mental thing. It's a peace of mind for me. It's a sense of achievement. Like sort of tasks are complete, physically and mentally. Yeah. But it's definitely an internal thing. And being a bit older and wiser, I think I've now lost ambition. Okay. Because I don't need it anymore. Yeah. So I'm not thinking, what should I be doing in order to improve my career? Yeah. What's the latest thing? So I think having my shit together means that I've got a bit more of a peace of mind. Yeah. And I don't quite feel like I need to conform and do things that I don't want to do. Yeah. I can now say, do you know, I don't want to go to that party. Yeah. Let's just not go. And that feels like you've got your shit together.
Well, you know yourself a bit more, don't you?
Yeah,
you know,
that's it.
You know what your interests
exactly
are, and you're not trying to people please in the same way, maybe.
Yes.
That's really cool. And actually, like, the fact you're saying that you don't have ambition, is that just because you feel like you've kind of achieved it and you're quite happy with where you're at now then?
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I don't have a feeling of, if only I'd done this, I would have got that promotion. Yeah. I think somebody once said, you are generally exactly where you're supposed to be in life.
I love that.
And I think I achieved a level of management that I didn't. It's like being the senior teacher and not wanting to be the head teacher because you like teaching. Yeah. And so I did a little bit of practical surveying, a little bit of management, and that was the level I wanted to go to. I didn't want to become a senior manager in any group. So I think I've got that shit together in my head. Yeah, great. But it's taken a long time.
Yeah. Okay, well, before the podcast, we asked you to think of an object that makes you feel like you've got your shit together.
I've brought it.
Have you?
I have.
What is it?
This is it. Are you ready?
Ooh, I'm ready.
Da-da-da-da.
What are you showing me?
I'm showing you a very exclusive collectible RuPaul's Drag Race badge.
It's a RuPeter badge.
It's a RuPeter badge.
Oh
now it's actually in its own original packaging.
My friend John Bell will absolutely lose his shit. I'm going to take a picture of it.
And I got it because I won. Spoiler alert!
Oh, spoilers!
Spoiler alert! My Michael and myself won the competition. Yeah. And I think, as you mentioned earlier, it's to do with, like, there's supposed to be a family resemblance. Yes. And he kind of made me up to look very much like him. In fact, Graham Norton said a very funny thing, which I think was cut. And he said, because I was struggling down the runway in the heels, and I was a bit horrified when I looked at myself later. I think, oh, I look like an old pub landlady. Yeah, and I did. I thought, do you know what? If they wanted to recast EastEnders, I want to bring in a trans cross-dressed Yorkshire, get out of my pub. Yeah. You know, I thought that'd be perfect. Anyway, Graham Norton said, you look like you've taken your mother to a nightclub and you can't get rid of her.
Hilarious.
And I took that well.
Yeah, it's a compliment.
And I don't know whether that made the final edit. I don't think it did.
That's
but
hilarious.
I think these are quite valuable.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because you can pick them up on eBay, but they're not the proper ones. Because they've got DragCon on them, and that means you buy them at DragCon cheaply. But this is a special one.
Oh my gosh, how amazing. And that must be such a symbol of pride for you now, then.
Well, I'm going to say that one of the questions that I suspect you're going to ask me is about a certain moment, and that's sort of about when I've got my shit together.
Okay, cool. We'll circle back to it then.
There was a funny moment a few weeks ago. I went to a Switchboard party, and I kind of wear that now, just for the hell of it.
Absolutely, I'd be wearing it every day.
Yeah, and I also had an overcoat on that had a little rainbow badge on. Yeah. And we were on the tube coming back with my partner. It was quite late. And there was this group of, I think they had quite a few drinks, but they were fantastic students, fashion students. Yeah. They were very Vivienne Westwood. They were very black and white, Gautier looking. And they were all like playing around on the poles and everything on the tube. And one of them looked at my badge, not the rupee, the other one, and said, "Oh, I like your rainbow badge." And I said, "Well, if you like that." And I unzipped my car. I said, "You'll love this." Right. And they went, "Oh my God, you've got a Peter badge." I said, "Yes." I said, "I won it on the makeover challenge." And they said, "Oh my God, we know you, you're Giza Minuli." Yeah. And they all like, and my partner, who's an actor, just sat there frumpy like this. I was thinking, my God, you've got all this recognition from, like 1 hour's programme. And they're all saying, "Look, it's that Peter, come over. And they're all having selfies. It was so funny.
How amazing. Tell us about a time in your life where you felt like you really had your shit together.
I can, Caitlin. 1983.
Oh, it's specific.
It is. I was 26.
Oh, nice.
The stars aligned.
Yeah.
Everything just came together. Like, I've never really believed in that sort of thing before. But that year, 1983, weirdly, I couldn't do wrong.
Wow.
That's the year I qualified as a Chartered Surveyor. When you qualify, you're an associate of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, ARICS. When you're a trainee, you're a probationer of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors. So when you're a trainee, you've got pricks after your name. Well, no one wants that, do they? So you're always happy to qualify as an ARICS.
To drop the prick.
To drop the pricks. So I qualified. And I bought the year before, I bought a little cottage in Haworth.
I love Haworth.
Do you know Haworth?
I go to Haworth every Christmas.
Oh, do you?
I do.
All right, well, that was
my
first. Right, well, I bought
gorgeous.
a through-by-light cottage. Do you know what that means?
No.
Right. For £10,500.
Oh, my God, get out.
Right, yeah. Now, in the you'll know in northern towns you have back-to-back houses, right? So it's rows of houses that have no back window or door,
right? Because
they back onto another house.
Oh.
It's Coronation Street. You must have seen the.
But they have the ginnel down it, don't they?
No, the ginnel is between the fronts of the houses facing each other. So you have a ginnel, then you have 2 blocks of houses, then you have another ginnel.
I know what you mean.
So you don't have a back wall or back window. So if you're in a middle one, then you only have a front door and front window. So you can't get ventilation in. Which I think is why it causes a lot of diseases we had. If you're in an end house, it's a bit posh, and then you have side windows, but you're not. If you're in a middle house, then you're back to back. Through by light means that you don't have anybody behind you, but you don't have a door, but you have windows.
Right, okay.
So light will go through the house and ventilation. And so my first cottage in Haworth backed onto a field, but I had no back door. Do you understand me? So the field that the farmer owned came up to my house, and I only had windows.
Oh, okay.
So the cows would come up to the glass and then lick the glass, thinking they're seeing another cow.
Yeah.
And I'd have to shoo them away. So, and that cottage overlooked the Keighley and Worth Valley Railway.
Wow.
Steam railway.
Lovely.
Do you remember that? Do you know that?
I know what a steam railway
Do you know the Railway Children, the film?
Yes.
With Jenny Agarty years and years ago.
Not seen it, but I've heard of it.
It's the first one that was made, and it was filmed famously on the Keighley to Worth Valley.
Wow.
Keighley to Haworth, Worth Valley Railway. It's a steam train.
Beautiful.
It runs currently weekends as for touristy things, and I used to look out onto that.
Gorgeous. It's also the land of the Brontes, isn't
it? And that's
Heathcliff
really
and Cathy
that's interesting, because I think I was over 30 before I visited the parsonage.
No way.
And I lived on its doorstep.
That's wild, yeah.
And they were the first road signs to be in Chinese.
Why?
Because tourists with Chinese came to Haworth.
No,
yeah,
that's
they went to
amazing.
Stratford-on-Avon.
Yeah.
And then they came to Haworth.
Wow, that's very far away from
And it was like Bronte waterfalls, and it would be in Chinese underneath.
That's hilarious. Amazing.
I know. So there was the Wuthering Heights was a proper derelict building you could walk to, where Emily Bronte had based Wuthering Heights on this farmhouse.
Wow.
So, in 1983, I sold that through by light cottage for £14,500.
Made a pretty
I made
profit.
£4,000 profit,
Amazing.
and it enabled me later in that year to buy, because a Dutch barn, a detached barn in Bingley, right?
Bingley.
And I've just found this beautiful house in 1983, made an offer, and it was accepted, and that happened.
Amazing.
I applied for a job, having just qualified, in a larger organisation of surveyors. I thought, I really want this job. Didn't get it. Really disappointed. So I was thinking, so I went back to the other job thinking, and then about 3 weeks later, I got a letter saying, the person, well, basically they offered me the job. The person who'd been offered it didn't take it. And so it's one of those moments of you have something taken away and then it comes back to you. Yeah. And so I got a new job. I moved house. Yeah. I developed in 26 a confidence. When I was 26, a sort of confidence in who I was.
Amazing.
I'll come on to my coming out story a bit later, but I just started to feel, do you know what? I'm a homosexual, and there are other homosexuals in Bradford and Leeds that go to clubs and bars. One bar and one club, but that was our family. Right. And we would go on a Saturday night. Nice. And that was 1983 when I just felt like I got my shit together. Yeah. And then, I'll never forget this, there was a club called Rock Shots in Leeds, and at midnight they had a cabaret every Saturday. Yeah. And 3 girls called the 3 Degrees. I bet you don't know who they are, do you?
No.
God, Caitlin. And they performed, before they were famous, they performed. And at 12:30, when they finished, the house lights came up, and a doctor from the sexual health clinic at Leeds General Infirmary stood up on the stage and said, "Sorry to interrupt your fun, guys, for 5 minutes. I've got to tell you about a virus that's coming over from America, and we can't cure it at the moment. We will do. We'll find a penicillin for it. Yeah. But unlike gonorrhea, syphilis, chlamydia, it's not working with penicillin. Right. Bear with us, and until we don't know what it's called, HTLV3 it was called then. Mm-hmm. Bear with us until we get a cure. Will you start using condoms?" Right. Now, condoms were for straight people. Yeah. We gays did not have condoms. Condoms were to stop you getting pregnant. Yeah. And we had the freedom of what we called barebacking in those days. Yeah. And he said, "There's a bucket downstairs when you leave tonight with condoms in it. Yeah. Will you take a handful and will you start using them until we find a cure?" Yeah. And those people that took that message on board and took a handful of condoms lived. Wow. And those who didn't died. Right. It was almost as simple as that. Wow. There were those people who didn't take the message on board and they died. And subsequently, I lost 2 boyfriends to AIDS, and lots of friends. In fact, I had this sometimes upsets me a bit, but I had a best suit. Yeah. It was like a navy suit and a black tie, and my straight friends who didn't know I was gay had their best suit. Yeah. And they would say, "I'm off to a wedding tomorrow, I've got to get my best suit out." And I would secretly think, and I'm getting out my funeral suit. Oh. And I would go to funerals in the afternoons, take half a day off, and not be able to tell them. Wow. And they would come back from their weddings, with pictures of them in their best suit. Gosh. And I was thinking, interesting, your best suit is your wedding suit, and my best suit is my funeral suit. Yeah. And it was, you'd start to see friends developing patches on their neck and arms, little bruises, and you'd see them in the gay club and you'd say, "Oh look, they've got it's called Kaposi's sarcoma. It was a cancer that the AIDS virus suppressed your immune system and couldn't stop it. So it rose up in your system, and you start to see a blemish on somebody and you think, oh dear, I wonder if they've got it." And then they would start to wear a little bit of makeup on it the next few weeks, and then another one would develop. Yeah. And then you wouldn't see them. They wouldn't come to the club anymore because they'd be too embarrassed. And then you'd have heard later on that they'd died. So whenever you yourself went for a shower or discovered a bruise, you were absolutely petrified because you thought, have I got it? Yeah. Have I got it? It was as simple as that. And so whenever you had a cough or whenever you had diarrhea for a while, or if ever you had a blemish, you were petrified. Yeah. And we all thought that this cure would be out in a few years' time. Yeah. And what are we talking now? 50 years later, and we still haven't got a cure. We've got a prevention with PrEP, but we don't actually have, the cure. Now, the difference is, it's quite important message to get across. AIDS and the HIV virus is a viral infection, not a bacterial infection. Right. And there's a big difference. Bacterial infections are cured by penicillin. Right. Viral infections are not. Yeah. And at the moment, we only have PrEP, which people can take to prevent them getting the HIV virus, or we have PEP, which you have a window of 48 hours after you think you may be subjected to it to seek this to actually kill the virus.
Right.
If you don't and you have the virus in your bloodstream, it's no longer the death sentence it was. Yeah. But you would now have to go onto medication, which you would currently have to take for the rest of your life.
Right, okay.
So we don't have a cure.
Yeah.
Even now we don't have a cure.
Yeah.
But you don't die now.
Yeah. Gosh, that, just hearing you talk through that, it just sounds like an absolutely terrifying period. And
it was. And what was also a bit upsetting, sorry, I just talked over you there.
That's okay.
Just when we were getting a little bit of pride in ourselves, the straight community and the bigots and the homophobes were able to say, and it was very difficult to argue, you got what you get what you're given here. Yeah. You choose that route, and God's punishing you. And it was very difficult to sort of say, well, up yours, because you actually thought we all knuckled down and went quiet and thought, is this God's punishment? Yeah. Because it was a very easy message to say, you've got AIDS. Yeah. In fact, I remember a secretary when I was, coming to me and saying, I've got a joke. I said, what? She said, what does GAY stand for? What does gay stand for? I said, I don't know. She said, got AIDS yet?
Oh, God.
And I said, and I'm ashamed to say I think I might have laughed or, to cover myself, really. And thinking, yes, because we all had to sort of
That's the
mock it.
internalised shame, isn't it?
Yeah.
So obviously when the doctor or the medical professional stood up and said that, had you heard of this virus before?
Yes, we'd actually we got something called Gay Times, which was an old sort of newspaper print that you could get sent to your house in a brown paper envelope, so your parents couldn't see it.
Oh, wow.
And that would sit, because there were no TV programs giving us that information. Yeah. There would be posters in the gay bars which would start to say, beware, there's something coming over, and blah, blah, blah. And we actually thought Americans initially you wouldn't date an American. We actually thought Americans transmitted it. Yeah. And before it sort of came into Europe, you would move away if you heard an American accent, sadly. And I think the reason when it started to become more serious was when more straight people started to contract it. Yeah. That was when we got John Hurt doing the TV broadcast. Do you remember that? You're old enough to remember that? No. There was a national broadcast on the BBC which had an image of tombstones and every household in Britain had a pamphlet put through their door of a tombstone that said AIDS is and John Hurt did an advert that said there's this plague or this thing which will kill is deadly or whatever. And that was the first time the straight community were made aware of the seriousness of it. Yeah. And that's when it came to light that people that were having blood transfusions were contracting it, and straight African people were contracting it. Yeah. And I was thinking, wow, that's interesting. It's now affecting the straight community. Yeah. And that was when American presidents started to listen and fund research. And I believe in this country, once the straights started to die, I mean, I'm sounding a bit political here.
No, absolutely.
But it's interesting that once we realised it wasn't just going to kill gays and it wasn't just going to go away, then we need to start funding this. And that's when clinics were set up to research. And because we were ashamed, we buried our dead quietly. And there's awful stories of, somebody being in a long-term relationship and their partner dying, and then their parents coming and taking away, the valuables in their house and saying the house is in his name, so can you get out now? And not acknowledging equal rights then. Yeah. It was only later when the civil partnerships were brought in to allow gay people, LGBT people to connect. This is before marriage, that you could start to protect possessions. Right. I paid into a pension at the company I worked for, and they were reviewing who you wanted in the event of your death, your pension to go to. Right. If I had a female spouse, it would automatically go to her if I died. I see. So I asked a question anonymously of the trustees, the board, what would happen if a gay man died? What would happen to his or her partner? Yeah. And do you know what they said? The trustees would have to decide if they felt that the partner needed the money or needed the beneficial, or how previously they'd been supported. Yeah. Now, my partner was an actor, and struggling actor. Yeah. And I thought, well, I'm not having some trustee in the Yorkshires deciding, how long have they been together and what does he earn and what does she... And so civil partnerships allowed us to cement that and to legalise.
Yeah.
And they couldn't argue if you'd done a civil partnership with another same-sex person. So the trustees would have been forced. And that was fundamentally the reason why my partner Derek and I did a civil partnership.
Yeah.
It was to say...
To protect.
To protect our rights.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you for sharing it. I feel like it's so important to talk about because only recently I feel like this period is getting spoken about. You know, It's a Sin, for example, was such a powerful way of talking about this period of time.
Yes.
If I'm honest, growing up, I did just think that it was something in America, really. I remember watching, like, Philadelphia with, what was it, Tom Hanks?
Yes.
That was my first understanding and seeing of it. And then there's, like, The Inheritance, the play, I don't know if you saw
marvellous.
that, which was incredible.
Yes.
And I just cannot believe that people lived through such a harrowing time.
Yeah.
And, you know, I remember when it was like the coronavirus period, the anxiety that you had being around people and almost liken it to like the bubonic plague, for example, and how terrifying that would see, because at least with COVID it wasn't visible, and how terrifying it must feel to see like a boil or something on you. But, you know, with AIDS, it does sound like it was that kind of fear of...
And also there was generally a fear within hospitals that apparently there's a scene in It's a Sin where the boy is locked away in one of the wards and his mother asks for permission to go in.
Yeah.
And I remember specifically nurses being given the choice, do they want to treat an HIV ward because of the potentially... There were a bit, we didn't exactly know
how it was spreading.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you remember Princess Diana? She did that marvellous thing of... Did she just hold someone's hand?
Held people's hands.
Yes, without gloves on.
Yeah.
And that was a groundbreaking moment for the gay community.
Yeah.
You know, you had men dying in wards, and they were mainly men, in fairness. And she actually had the courage to hold hands. Because we would have...
That small act of humanity as well, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we would have relatives of... Not our relatives, but we'd have stories of relatives saying... that their family would come and not be comfortable having a cup of coffee out of the cup.
Yeah.
And someone would say, I could see my mother not wanting to touch our towels. And it was an ignorance.
So it's completely what you were saying, though. It was setting you back by like 50 years again and having to rebuild after that.
It did.
What was it that got you through that time?
An inner strength of belief in just who I was and not accepting the shame of it.
Yeah.
There was a combination therapy kicked in, which was a breakthrough in treatment of it, where our friends that were HIV positive would be on a whole range of pills called combination pills, and they'd have a little tray, a plastic tray with them all on, and you had to take them at certain days, certain hours through the day.
Right.
So you'd go to a dinner party or you'd go to a restaurant. And your friends would disappear to the toilet and they weren't going to do coke.
Yeah.
They were doing the pill that they had to take an hour into their food.
Yeah.
They would set their alarms in bed for 3 a.m. because they had to take the blue pill at that time.
Yeah.
Now, those that followed that combination, and there might have been 20 to 30 pills, just didn't die. They just held on. And I remember going to Crouch End. Kevin Elliott was a marvellous playwright who wrote My Night with Reg. I don't know if you know some of his work. And he was so poorly, and his muscles were so emaciated. And we went to a pizza place, and his bum was so sore because it was bone on bench. Yeah. And we had to ask for a cushion for him. And he spilt his pills on the floor. And it was just one of those awful moments for him when his pills were in a mess. He could hardly sit there, and he just kind of sat and wept. He subsequently did die of AIDS. And he had a good cry. But at that point onwards, we had friends who just survived it. Yeah. And I think realising that this combination therapy was going to enable people to live with symptoms gave us all a new confidence. Yeah. And I think that was when we started to develop a strength again. Yeah. And just as we were developing strength, what does Mrs. Thatcher do? She introduces Section 28. Right. Do you know that?
Yes. Yeah.
Now, that was brought in because there was a fear in the Conservative...
For anyone who doesn't know what is Section 28.
Yes, it was a clause that was brought in. There was a bit of a hoo-ha about Camden Council putting in a library or a school library 2 men raising a child. And it was something about Johnny and Freddie raises Daisy or something. And it was a simple story about two men. Yeah. And of course, it was taken up on board by people saying this is an example that should not be shown to children. Now it's a different matter. We know people go to school and they've got 2 mummies and 2 daddies, and thankfully it's far more acceptable.
In like Birmingham or something where it was.
Oh yes,
in recent history that has been an issue, hasn't it?
Yes. So, and I think that got quite political that Camden Council were promoting the idea of that it was okay to be homosexual, or it was promoting the idea that 2 homosexuals could adopt a child. And there was a backlash against it. Like I said, we don't want this idea of, and I think Mrs. Thatcher said this speech about there's a council that's saying that everyone has a right to be gay. And I remember her saying that. So I'm saying, well, we're not having that. It's not a right to be gay. Section 28 was a law that was passed that prevented schools, guardians, or anybody in a position of trust with a child could not discuss it in a positive way. And of course, it was interpreted in lots of different ways. But teachers felt that they were silenced in being able to talk sympathetically with a gay child. And so they felt that they couldn't say, well, let's talk about this in the classroom, because they feared that they would break this Section 28 law and appear to be promoting it. So it was used to suppress our voice for many years. We actually did go on protests and things about that. In fact, the early gay pride was a march for rights, not a parade. These days, although we still don't have completely equal rights, it's a lot more fun.
As a celebration,
and it's called a Mardi Gras, or it's called a parade, whereas it was never a parade. It was a march for, we're visible, we want you to see us. We're here to wave the flag for equality because we still don't have it. And so eventually, I think it must have been the Labour Party that eventually suppressed Clause 28, and it was realised that it was against human rights.
That was in I say recent history for me. I think it was the 90s, wasn't it? It was definitely within my lifetime. I think that was overhauled.
Yes.
I think so.
Yes.
Just to go back to watching It's a Sin, I remember one of the things that struck me the most was the loss that you were living with, losing so many of your loved ones and your friends. You know, majority of my male friendships are gay men.
Yes.
And I remember sitting there after one of the final episodes and just thinking of all the people that I probably would have lost, and those being the most special relationships to me.
Yes.
And how lucky we are to have this like vibrant, accepting community within our society, and how devastating it was to lose so many of those voices, because we won't hear from those people again.
No. There was a scene in The Inheritance, I don't remember, at the end of the first part, where all the spirits of the boys that died of AIDS come out of the audience and into a house that was settled as it was like a safe house that was set up for them to die.
Yeah, a nice place for them to go.
Yeah, that made me cry.
It's powerful. It's very powerful. Thank you for sharing.
That's all right.
I imagine that might have incorporated a time in your life where you felt like you really didn't have your shit together.
No.
No? Okay. Well,
no.
A time in your life where
I think
you
we
felt
now
like
move
you
to
didn't have your
my
shit
coming
together.
out story,
Okay.
right? Little boy growing up in Keighley. Religious parents, Methodist, loving parents, sister, I had a sister, 2 years older. Knew I was a soft boy. Knew I didn't like to get dirty. Couldn't throw a ball. I still can't.
Famous
my partner, it is. It's swimming crawl and throwing a ball. It's like if you want to sort out who's gay, who's straight. But I still can't throw a ball properly. And so my father was very sports.
You can throw a ball.
My father was very sporty. He did cricket, football, rugby. And of course I was at that time, his only son.
Yeah.
Of course, I didn't understand why I didn't like football and didn't like rugby and things, but I wanted to be liked by my dad.
Yeah.
When we used to go on holiday, my father used to organise cricket matches on the sands between 2 hotels.
Okay.
And I used to dread this.
Right.
It was every Thursday afternoon, and we went for a fortnight, and it would happen twice. Wow. And I knew I would humiliate my father because I couldn't catch the ball. I used to think, why is the ball so hard? Why is the cricket ball so hard? It'll hurt me. It'll knock my teeth out.
They do hurt, to be
I was thinking, why aren't they softer? Like a rounders, like
a shuttlecock.
Yeah, yes, that'd be much better. No, let's play ping pong. I'm good at that. Yeah. So anyway, I'd be hopeless. And the ball would come over and my father would say, Peter, catch. And of course, I could no longer catch or anything. Yeah. And so I couldn't throw. And whenever I batted, I was usually out first for a duck. But I remember visibly feeling really shit about being a young boy and everything. And I remember to this day, and my father had meant nothing hard, awful about it. You know, what did they say? They fuck you up, your mum and dad?
Oh, yeah.
I would miss the ball and I would count to 3, and my father would shout across the whole beach, Butterfingers.
Shame.
I mean, it tore me apart, that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's an expression that's used these days.
Yeah.
If you miss a ball, you call Butterfingers.
Yeah, I think if you drop something, if you're you've got
right,
Butterfingers.
okay. Well, my dad would shame me with the word Butterfingers. Yeah. And that, he doesn't know how much that hurt me, but it really did. Now, I sort of still stayed in the closet. I had a girlfriend. I think that our families thought I was going to continue with the traditional Yorkshire family, 2.4 children. And it was a Sunday evening, and I was probably about 19. And I phoned the Samaritans because my parents were at church in the choir. And I phoned the Samaritans thinking, I think I'm gay, right? We didn't use the word gay, we said homosexual. And I couldn't speak to Samaritans. They answered the phone. Had I known that Switchboard was launched when I was 16, I'd have phoned them, but I didn't know they existed because they've just celebrated 50 years. So I phoned the Samaritans and I couldn't speak to them and I couldn't say the words, but I just thought there's a kind listening voice there. And so I put the phone down, and we have a little latch on our gate outside, and I could hear the latch going from my parents coming in, and I'd had a good cry, and I thought, this time I won't stop crying, which will force them into
asking you what's
yes.
wrong.
And it was Sunday night when you're always feeling a bit meh because you've got like college or work the next day. Yeah. And I carried on crying, and my mum and dad came in, and my mum knelt down and my father stood by, and they said, "What's wrong, Peter? What's wrong?" And I said, I couldn't say I like boys. Yeah. So I said, I don't understand why I don't like girls. Right, yeah. Which, thinking about it now, is rather less of a shot than saying, "Oh, I really like boys." Yeah. So I said, I don't like girls. I don't know why I don't like girls. So my mother said, "Well, we'll get the doctor. We'll get the doctor. Wow. And of course, our family doctor had dealt with me from chicken pox, measles, everything. Yeah. So my mother said, we'll get an appointment on Monday. I'll phone on Monday. So my mother phones on Monday and says, we need an emergency appointment. Oh, the doctor needs to come to the house. Wow. On Wednesday afternoon, it was arranged. All right, my father came home from work. We lit up the front room. We put a fire in the front room. Do you know what I mean? By
important people coming over.
Yes, yeah. Christmas Day. Yeah. My mum baked scones. Wow. Right, yeah. On Tuesday, ready for doctor.
Apple a day keeps the doctor away. Scones brings them over to your house, apparently.
It was just like, it was like, we must be nice. So the doctor came in. My father sat in that chair, and I sat in this chair, and my mother sat on the sofa, and the doctor sat on the sofa. In fact, the doctor sat on the sofa, and my mother, now I think we were working class. My partner says, no, you were lower middle or you were upper working, because we had a trolley. Oh. And my mother wheeled in this little trolley thing with the best china, hot tea and scones. Nice. Now, there were fruit scones, so there was no jam cream business, right? Yeah. And she handed I can see it now, china cup, saucer, scone. Uh-huh. And my father leant over and said, okay, over to you, Peter. And I said, oh, doctor, I think I am a homosexual. Oh, wow. Now, I swear to this day the tea rattled. Probably didn't. Yeah. But he put the tea, he had a sip of tea, put it down. He put the scone down on the trolley, and he stood up and said, oh, you need a psychiatrist. He said, this is not for me. This is not my division. I'll need to refer you to a psychiatrist. You'll get a letter from us shortly. And left.
This is wild.
And my father cried. Right. Because he thought if I won't say his name, if the doctor can't cure us or help us, then we really are in the shit. Right. And my mother said, well, he hadn't touched his scone.
Ungrateful.
I went to all that trouble. And so, a week later, we only had to wait a week to see a psychiatrist in those days. Wow, yeah. A letter arrives.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, Peter, your letter's arrived. This is my mum. Your letters come from Airedale Hospital in Keighley. Would Peter Bennett go and see this doctor, this psychiatrist? And I was learning to drive at the time. So my mum said, well, will you drive to the hospital and I'll wait for you in the car park? So I went to this I tell my friends this story and no one can quite believe it. I went and he looked at me and he read the referral letters and he said to me, stand up. Right, so can I show you now?
Yeah.
He said, stand up. So I stood up. He said, put your arms out. I put my arms out. He said, put your hands on your hips. Put your hands on your hips.
Yeah.
So I put my hands on my hips. He said, you're not homosexual. What? I said, oh, thank God for that. He said, no. He said, homosexuals, when they put their arms out, their wrists flop down. Oh. He said, yours stayed horizontal, strong. He said, when homosexuals put their wrists on their waists, their hands on their waists, their thumbs face forward.
Oh my God.
Now, thankfully, mine were facing backwards. Yeah. So I thought, fantastic, I'm not homosexual.
Wow, can't be.
Yeah, so...
the Macarena test.
So he said, I've got a book for you, right?
Wow.
In the book is all things about sexuality, in particular, photographs of the vulva.
Right.
And there were black and white photographs.
Bloody hell, that's not going to turn anyone on.
I know. What the photograph? Listen, Caitlin, I can find a clitoris in the dark without a torch.
Better than many straight men, to be honest.
But I know my labia majora from my labia minora. I know an enlarged minora. I know the whole lot. You know, and I was 19. I knew more about vulvas than women do. So I took this book home, which I had to look at in bed, you know, and all that. And I had to have a follow-up session of 2 weeks later. So I went back and he just said, well, how are you? I said, oh, yes, I feel great. I'm not a homosexual, you know, thank you for your diagnosis. And he said, yeah. And I gave the book back. And my mother said, when I got back in the car, so what's the conclusion? I said, oh, I'm not homosexual. My mother said, we never thought you were. Oh. She said, your dad will be right pleased. Oh, God. Now, I was still with my girlfriend at the time, and I was thinking, great, you know, and for 3 or 4 or 5 months, it gave me the confidence to think I wasn't. Yeah. Now, there's a film called Women in Love that D.H. Lawrence wrote a book, and it was a very famous 1970s film that Ken Russell directed. Okay. Have you ever seen it? No. You should watch it. It's really brilliant. It has Glenda Jackson doing one of an Oscar-winning performance in it. Amazing. And Oliver Reed and Alan Bates play. You should get it out. It's an iconic film. Yeah. Very earthy and very strong about northern family. And there is this scene, and I was at the cinema with my girlfriend, and there is this scene in it where Oliver Reed and Alan Bates strip naked and they wrestle on the floor in front of a big open fire. And I think I nearly fainted. Seriously, I think my heart was beating so fast. Oh, I think I was sweating. Yeah. You know, blood was reaching places that it's never reached before. And I thought, wow, I this is something that I'm responding to here. Yeah. And there's a scene with sexuality related to women, and it didn't do it for me. Yeah. So about 3 months after that, my mum and dad were having Sunday lunch, and I thought to myself, as soon as my dad finishes his Yorkshire pudding and puts his knife and fork down, I'm going to tell them. Right. And it was one of those moments where you force yourself to do it. And his knife and fork went down on the plate, and I said, Mum and Dad, I've got something to tell you. And they said, what? I said, the psychiatrist was wrong. I am a homosexual. Yeah. And my mother said, Peter, I just wish you'd make up your blooming mind. Isn't that fabulous? Yeah. And that was my coming out story. Wow. And that's what really made me feel like, those years made me feel like shit. I
bet, because you're trying to figure out who you are. Yeah. It's difficult enough at that age trying to figure out who you are generally in society without having that massive question mark over your head as well.
Yes.
Yeah. And if you don't mind me asking, how was the aftermath with your parents?
Lovely. Yeah. It's something they didn't understand, but there was something about me saying to you haven't done anything wrong, Mum. Yeah. You haven't done anything wrong, Dad. It's just who I am. The sad thing was the only representations that they had on social media then was television, and they were like comic presenters were gays. Yes. So it was like Larry Grayson was somebody who took over the Generation Game, and his little catchphrase was "shut that door," and people would laugh at that because it was safe. Dick Emery was an impressionist, and he used to dress up as this effeminate homosexual. Right. Now, there was one very important BBC programme that came out called The Naked Civil Servant. Oh, and it was a book that was written by Quentin Crisp,
Right.
who was quite an outrageous, unapologetic homosexual. He talks about his life not going into the army and dealing with bullying, and it was made into a BBC adaptation with, funnily enough, John Hurt playing a straight man playing him.
Right, okay.
And it was one episode on a Sunday evening, and my dad was in his pyjamas and his dressing gown, and I was, and we were watching this, and this is just shortly after I'd talked, just before I actually come out to them. My father said, and I was waiting for what he was going to say, and my father said, at the end of it, "What a brave man."
Oh, wow.
And I thought, oh, I'm going to he here now. I'm going to be all right when I tell them.
Yeah.
So they were very supportive.
Amazing.
My dad died quite young at 56, so he didn't meet my current long-term partner.
Yeah.
But my mum became a Samaritan and was very supportive of gay rights in a way.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Hey, Ant.
Hey.
You do a great job in editing this podcast, might I say. If people like the podcast, what do they need to do?
Like it.
What else?
Follow it on social media.
And then what?
They could share it with every single person they know.
Thanks, Ant. You can go back to your corner now.
Bye.
3 things that make you feel like shit.
Passwords.
Passwords.
Passwords drive me crazy.
Oh my God, I know. Yeah.
You start off using the same ones.
Yeah.
And then it says you can't. This has been picked up in some sort of leak.
Yeah.
And so you add 1, 2, 3 to the end of it, and then it says next time you use it, it says, oh no, it's going to be 9 letters, or it's got to have a capital, or it's got to have a special character or something.
Yeah.
And then you forget to write it down, right? So then you click onto the thing that says you've forgotten your password. So it sends you an email, and you pick in the new password. It says, oh, someone's already got that, and you say, yes, it's me who's got that. I've got that password. Yeah. So that drives me crazy.
Yeah.
And I think so. That sort of technology generally, if it's not working.
Yeah.
If your email system gets corrupted and you can't send or receive and things like that. And of course, I'm an older guy now, so I'm not necessarily. So computers is a relatively newish thing to us. In fact, I think someone said our age group in the 50s and as 60-year-olds, we've been through the biggest change in terms of technology. I mean, we used to have phone boxes down the road was where we made our phone calls.
You've seen it all. You were writing letters and now you're a...
No, but we've had to cope with, I think, one of the biggest changes of mobile phones, computers. I've got an 80-year-old friend, bless him, and he doesn't have a computer, so he can't get a doctor's appointment, can't book theatre tickets. The things he can't bank,
honestly,
the thing he's been left behind. So I'm going to say passwords.
Yeah.
Number 2.
Yeah.
Air travel.
Air travel.
Drives me crazy.
Like flying.
Yeah, just, the whole ridiculousness of it all. And we've been doing a lot lately. And, the 3-hour check-in before you get there. Well, I'm a bit nervous, so we've got to get there 4 hours before and all that rubbish. The delays, the connecting flights not connecting. Look, I always fly economy because I'm kind of a bit cheap like that. It's the Yorkshire in me. But I always think, why would you want to pay £2,000 more just for 10 hours when that's 200 cocktails? You know what I mean? So, I thought,
it's all relative.
I'll put up with take a sleeping pill and put up, recline as far as I can and put up with 12 hours,
I cannot sleep on a plane.
Can you not?
No, I'm too long.
Right.
Too long for
So
it.
do you fly business class then?
Oh, no, I fly economy.
yeah.
I just have no sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got friends who say, I would never turn right on a plane. I was thinking... they say, look at those people that have the miles and all that business because they've got air miles connected. So we don't have all that. But I think, well, for 12 hours, I'll just put up with it for the sake of a couple of thousand. So, I'm in cattle class, and so I see the worst of human behaviour. But the number of times my partner says that I say whenever we fly, if I was organising this, I'd have the queue going that way, and therefore that wouldn't cause that problem. So air travel drives me crazy.
Yeah.
And the third thing is, I think anti-wokeism and discrimination that's creeping back now, that makes me feel like shit.
Yes.
Thinking, why can't we just be kind?
Yeah.
Why can't we, as I said earlier, why is snowflake a dirty word now? Why can't you just accept somebody wants to be known as they and them? Yeah. Working at Switchboard, I've got a lot of non-binary friends.
Yeah.
And they don't identify as male and female, so just to actually treat them as gender neutral. It's not harming anybody. You're not
So
hurting
what
them.
difference does it make to your life?
I know, and it's marvellous that, is it Generation Z? Who's
Gen
next?
Z.
Gen Z. Who's the next one? Alpha.
I think it is, yeah.
I think Alphas and Z are, at the moment, the kindest and the most understanding of diversity.
Definitely, yeah.
And I said to my niece, who's got a little child, a little boy, and I said, he's going to come back from school and soon he's going to say to you, I've got a new friend. And you're going to say, oh, is it he, she? And they're going to say, I don't know.
Yeah.
And it won't be important.
Yeah.
And it'll be a non-binary child that hasn't got an identity yet.
A little baby.
Yeah, it could be a little thing. But so I'm going to say witnessing discrimination, and that brings back toxic shame with me. It makes me feel like shit.
Yeah.
It makes me feel. It makes me still feel I wouldn't dream even on the tube in London holding my partner's hand.
Yeah.
I don't think we would last 5 minutes without getting some form of abuse. I might do it in Soho, whatever, in Compton Street, but in London. But I think there wouldn't be a city in this country that my partner and I, in our 60s, could sit and hold hands in a pub without 10 minutes getting someone saying some abuse.
Yeah. Gosh.
So that kind of blatant discrimination appearing itself for no other reason, it makes me feel like shit.
Definitely. Okay, 3 things that make you feel like the shit.
Posh hotel rooms.
Oh, yeah.
When you first put your card in and you go in, I'm like a hamster in a new cage. No, seriously, I run around.
Running around?
I run around trying light switches on and saying, look at this, look at this. The first thing I've got to look for the tea and coffee machine. And say, oh, look, shortbread. Oh, look, it's a chocolate ginger biscuit. And so I love to put the suitcase down, put the kettle on, that little shh, get a little sound, go and check the bathroom out, heated floor, shower and a bath, Derek. Yeah. And then 1,000 1,000 thread couch, Egyptian cotton and all that business. And it's a lovely mattress.
Yeah.
And I always go to the window to look out at the view, and I always know it'll be disappointing because I haven't paid for the upgrade. So it's like partial sea view. And I was thinking, you could. I'm not paying £50
over the car park
just to see the sea. I'll say to my partner, well, we won't be spending time in the hotel room. Why do we need a sea view? And then when you get there and you think, there's a brick wall out there. Maybe we should have paid £50 a night more. But I love that. Yeah. Running around, switching on lights and off. And so that's the nice smell of a nice clean hotel room.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And thinking I can mess it up.
Yeah.
Hair conditioner. I never have hair conditioner. My hair's fantastic if I stay in a hotel room.
Such a luxury.
Are you supposed to condition it every time? You're not, are you?
No, I think.
I do.
Yeah.
Because it's their hair.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah, of course.
No, it's shampoo. You're not supposed to shampoo all the time. But I think conditioning is okay.
Now, one thing I don't like, and it's a trend, soap in plastic bottles screwed to the wall.
Yeah.
I think it's a travel lodge thing or something.
Yeah.
I like little bars of soap.
Oh, do you? Old school like that.
Yeah,
I don't like a soap bar now.
Do you not?
No, I don't know why. I just find it quite unhygienic in my head. Even though I know it's soap. Does soap clean itself?
But how do you get the soap from in the plunge bottle onto yourself? Do you have a sponge thing?
Oh, you're talking about like on your body.
Yes.
I have a body wash, like a bottle of body wash.
But you're in a shower.
Yeah.
And against the wall, there's like one that says shampoo and one says body wash, and there's no bar of soap.
Yeah.
So how do you get that body wash onto your body?
It's a good question.
My partner takes a little like a hair cap thing, like a loofah thing.
Right.
And he uses that, but I don't use that. Okay. I use the bar of soap.
Yeah.
So we've actually started, can you believe this? It's like people who take tea bags on holiday. I've started taking my own bar of soap, just in case the hotel room.
Case?
Do you? Yeah.
You never know.
Do you know what I don't like?
Go on.
If you've gone really posh,
Too posh.
and there's no tea and coffee machine.
Yeah.
Because we once went to Rome and we stayed in a really smart hotel, and someone said, why are there no tea and coffee machines? And the person said, well, somebody makes that for you. You just ring room service and it comes in a tray. I know, but you say no one ever makes their own tea and coffee if you're really posh. So they bring in a china set, on a tray that's room service. But I actually quite like, a cup of tea.
Yeah. Mad.
Number 2, things that make me feel like the shit, my switchboard.
Okay.
Yeah. Been 9 years there. It's a charity helpline.
Yeah.
Sadly, we're still needed. and I've just did a shift this morning.
Right.
3 hours, 10 till 1,
How
on the
often do you
phone.
do it?
I do them about every week, but you're required to do them once a fortnight,
Okay.
3 hours.
Yeah.
And you can do phone, instant chat, or email. So there's 3 ways of contacting us
So
now.
it can be subtle if people want to text you or something.
Some people can't find their voice.
Right.
Like when I was
That's
the boy
interesting.
trying to ring Samaritans.
Yeah.
Some people can text, and now they find it's more comfortable texting.
Yeah.
If someone's non-binary and their voice is not gendered, then for them to call me and me to call them she when they're a he,
Of course.
so we always ask what their pronouns are.
Wow.
And which is why I'm big on pronouns, whereas we've got friends who just think it's a tick boxing, rubbish exercise. But I sometimes talk to people when I'm thinking, I don't know whether they're male or female. So I'll ask them, how would you like me to refer you?
Yeah.
And they'll say they,
Yeah.
completely comfortable, or they'll say he or she. But at least we asked.
Yeah.
So I did a 3-hour shift this morning. I like the vocal calls because I can hear from the voice and the rhythm.
Yeah, the tone.
tone, how to deal with the particular issue. Now, it's important to get across that we are a listening service. We're quite rigorously trained, but we don't give advice.
Right.
We listen and we support, and we offer referrals to other organisations
Right.
that will offer support for particular issues.
Right, I see.
The hot potatoes at the moment, sexual health, sex risks, PrEP, getting tested
Yeah.
for sexual infections and things, the importance of that. We get a lot of calls for immigration, people seeking asylum.
Okay.
Yesterday, Ghana, the African country of Ghana,
Yeah.
passed a law that said it was now illegal to be a homosexual in
this,
Ghana, and you would be imprisoned if you said you were one.
Oh my God.
So that was passed yesterday by the Government of Family Values, I think it was called, or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so not all countries are accepting. So we
Going
talk.
backwards in places,
Yeah,
isn't
it
it?
is.
Yeah.
Gender identity is a really hot topic. People who are identifying as neutral or identifying as a different gender to themselves, and how that's been dealt with at school, in sports activities, prisons. It's a real hot potato at the moment. It's going backwards.
Forget that this kind of binary society that we're in is actually a very westernized thing. And prior to that, there's cultures where they celebrate 3 different genders. There's cultures across the world where they celebrate 5 different genders.
Yes.
Those third gendered people are seen as the wisest within their community and stuff like that. It's actually a very modern thing that we've started to put onto people.
Absolutely. Indian tribes would have somebody, or even in India, before we moved over there and messed it all up, there was Hindu gods and Vishnu gods. They're made up of a whole range of male and female aspects.
And being gay was celebrated, or
Yes,
it wasn't seen as punishable. It was just a thing that existed.
Yes.
It was almost neutral.
Yes.
Which is how it should be.
It was like Victorian values that we imposed. And the third thing that makes me feel like the shit, my partner and I have got 5 or 6 things that we just say, this is the moment. Right? Let's just remember this.
Yeah.
One of them was just recently when we went on a little safari. We didn't think we were going to see anything at the moment. And then we were having gin and tonic that evening before our safari in the morning, and this herd of elephants came up to the side of the lodge, and I just looked at Derek and said, "Oh my God, look, there's those elephants!" And we watched them for about 10 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
And she was washing the baby, and we thought, wow, this is one of the moments.
Yeah.
Taj Mahal.
Oh wow.
We went to see the Taj Mahal. That was one of those moments. Sunrise, it was one of those moments of, this is one of those moments. Our first vision of Manhattan. Right. We went to America about 25 years ago. We arrived at night. We went to Brooklyn to our friends.
Oh, yeah.
They said, let's give you a Manhattan cocktail and then let's take you out to Brooklyn Heights to see. Now, the Twin Towers were up then.
Wow.
And we'd never seen Manhattan other than the films. And we had these Manhattan cocktails and we went to Brooklyn Heights and looked across at Manhattan. Wow.
New York feels like a movie, doesn't it? Because you've seen it so much on TV and film.
The Brooklyn Bridge was lit up. We could see the Chrysler Building, the Empire State, and the Twin Towers. Wow, that was one of those. So those are things that make me feel like the shit.
Okay, something that makes you lose your shit in a positive and a negative way.
Negative way is easy. I hate queue jumpers. I hate selfish people. I can't bear it. I can't. I actually, if I'm getting on a tube and there's someone with a whole row of children and I'm standing, or there's an old person standing and they just ignore it.
Yeah.
I'm afraid I'm the vocal one that says, "Would you mind this old lady sitting down?" Last summer, a friend of mine has cancer in Yorkshire. He had a kidney removed and he has a stick. And we went into town and it was a full tube at Finsbury Park. And there was a man facing us with a cat in a plastic box in the middle and his wife next to him facing us. And my friend was stood there with his stick. And I just said, "Excuse me, my friend's got cancer, it's not real. Could he sit down where the cat is?" And this man said, "No, the cat's going to the vet, the cat's poorly."
Oh my gosh.
And it's in a plastic, those boxes with ventilation. I just couldn't believe the selfishness of it. And I said, "My friend's really poorly. Could you put the cat on the floor?"
Yeah.
I'm feeling my blood pressure coming up now. I'm feeling like in the shit. And he said, "No, the cat wouldn't like to be on the floor. It's vibration." I said, "Would you like to put the cat on your lap?
Yeah.
And then my friend can sit down." I couldn't believe I was saying this. In the end, you know what he did?
What?
He stood up so the cat could keep its seat. And my friend sat down. So selfishness, I can't bear.
Yeah.
Cinema theatre etiquette, I can't bear.
Yeah.
If someone's munching away, or if someone talks when the film started, my partner knows what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn around and say, "Excuse me," but the film started. So those are things that make me lose my shit in a negative way. Well, I'm going to say, and it's never happened, turning left, an upgrade and turning left on an aeroplane.
That would make you lose your shit.
Yeah. Because I haven't paid for it. And I've got an upgrade. Or maybe them saying, this never happens, but saying at the hotel, would you like to, we've got a suite available for no extra cost.
Yeah, sea view.
Yeah, yes. Having a sea view and not paying for it.
Here's 5 bars of soap.
Yes.
Okay, a moment you found some shit out about yourself.
Yeah, a few years ago, I was working in a suit, wearing a suit, carrying a briefcase. I was on the Northern Line, going down through Camden, and for about a year, Mornington Crescent was closed, and the track was on wooden sleepers, and the train would slow down to go over the wooden sleepers, and then speed up again.
Right.
And I remember going through after Camden thinking, the train's going to slow down in a minute. And it didn't. And we came off the track, right?
Oh, my gosh.
At full speed.
Wow.
The whole tube train came off. And we went rickety, back. The whole thing was tilted backwards and forwards. The lights went out.
Yeah.
Emergency bulbs came in. The whole carriage is filled with, what people thought was smoke.
Yeah.
Okay. People screaming.
Yeah, of course.
And I just stayed really calm.
Right.
And when it was dust, I realised it wasn't smoke because I couldn't smell it. People turned and said to me, "What do we do? What do we do? What do we do?" And I just said, "Well, look, we've just come through the station. So the exit to the station is at the back of the train. Why don't we all walk through the train?" Yeah. "Oh, yeah, that's a good idea." And I was calm, cool as a cucumber. And I thought, where has this come from? And I opened the interconnecting door and said, "Let's all walk through this way. No one panic. And they all followed my direction. Wow. We got right to the back of the train, and it was just in the end of Mornington Crescent. So we could get off. There was a guard there who'd forced the door open, and we could step off and then walk up the steps in Mornington Crescent to the top. Yeah. And I just thought, I've learned something about myself there, that sometimes I can have this shit. Yeah. And I'm going to give you a quote here, right, from Queen Victoria.
Go on.
"Great events make me feel quiet and calm. It's only the trifling that irritates my nerves."
Oh.
And I think I'm like that.
Yeah.
Something really big and catastrophic I can handle, and I know what to do. Yeah. If there's something silly and little and niggling, it gets my shit.
Gosh, that's so interesting.
So I actually think I've found out a little bit about myself that I can handle. Yeah. I can handle big matters.
Yeah, definitely.
Better than little things.
Gosh, I wonder where that comes from. I suppose it's from all the things that you've been through, maybe, that you've had to hold yourself together.
It might be.
For other people.
It might be.
Yeah.
Because now when I've got friends who go to funerals and they're all crying and they're upset, I feel like saying, well, I've been there, I've done that. And although I can't interpret their feelings, it doesn't hit me the same because I feel you haven't been through as big a trauma as I have. And your growing up was pretty easy and made for the straight world. And when you can't navigate that, it toughens you up for things that you'll face in the future.
Yeah. Okay, shittest piece of advice you've received.
You are not a homosexual.
Right.
That psychiatrist.
Yeah.
What a shitty piece of advice to give someone.
Oh my God.
The only thing that since I've spoken to a doctor about this who said, do you think he knew you were, and he was saying that just to nudge you, because thinking that you were perhaps just a sensitive boy who hadn't made his mind up, and he was giving them the best. But I think, no, you were just you didn't really understand it, and you just thought that homosexuals were effeminate.
Yeah. Okay, shit you wish you'd known sooner.
That you don't have to find a conventional route through life, and that you don't have to be traditional. You will find your path through life, which will be different to the other people's, but it'll be fulfilling, and that's something I wish I'd learned earlier. And the second thing I'd like to know if sooner in life was, I always looked young than my true age, and it used to piss me off because you don't get carded in this country, but a pub landlord would say, are you old enough? When I was like 21. And I was the last one of my mates to shave. And there was a great clone look in the 70s for gays. You had to have a moustache and wear a checked shirt. And I couldn't grow a good moustache. It was all ginger and thin. And so I would like to know sooner in life that it's going to pay dividends you looking younger. Because now I'm 66.
Wow. You don't look
People
it.
say, and I think, do you know what? Looking young is actually going to pay off.
Oh my God.
When I first bought that house I told you about in Haworth, I'd lived there 2 weeks. I went to the door in the evening. A man said, is your mum in?
No way.
I said, what do you mean, mum? This is my house.
Got the mortgage.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, amazing. Okay, and now we're at the point of a shit shot. So this is the photo that to the outside eye looked like you had your shit together, but at the actual time you definitely didn't.
The shit shot I've sent you is the one just taken before the RuPaul's Drag Race where they'd made me over.
Yeah.
And you would think I'm looking like I've got my shit together. I've had it, this has transformed me into a new person. I'm acting.
Yeah.
But I was terrified, and my legs were shaking, and I didn't want to fall over. I didn't want to make an idiot of myself.
Yeah.
So the picture looks like I'm confident, and in fact, I'm not. I'm going to say like I was expected to swan in, calm and serene, but underneath, it was sort of all panic stations.
Also, the responsibility, I guess, that you were trying to assist someone else's win as well.
That's a good point, because I felt if I fall over or if the costume looks ridiculous, he only had, I think, 2 Repeater badges, whereas Ginger Johnson had got 4 or something like that. And so it was, and I didn't know, but the week before me, he was down to the lip sync, so he was possibly going to be eliminated, and they don't tell you that.
Okay.
But so it was a nice moment for me to witness his win.
Yeah. And how has it felt watching back that episode?
Empowering a bit.
Yeah.
Like, well, you've come full circle, Peter. You're actually on television now.
Absolutely.
On an internationally kind of franchised drag show, unapologetically gay and outrageous. And you're there as Peter from Yorkshire, talking a little bit about your past, not in any disguise, having some fun, being someone different, and saying, I made it. You know what? I'm fucking here.
Yeah. And lest we forget, won!
I won!
The episode.
I won!
You're a winning queen.
And I think I did mention, that people have lost their way, lost their lives on this journey.
Absolutely.
And so let's just celebrate a bit of this my journey, really.
Yeah, and it was gorgeous because you incorporated a little moment into the runway
Yes,
walk,
we
didn't you,
did.
to remember
We
the
did.
people that
Yes.
you
Oh,
lost.
wow. Well
Yeah.
done.
Oh, I watched
You were
it.
listening.
Don't worry. Okay, so Peter, have you got your shit together?
Caitlin, if you ask other people, they will say Peter has his shit together. Peter means rock,
Yeah.
strong, someone to cling on to.
Yeah.
Inside, I don't always feel like that.
No.
I've got a little bit more anxious with older age. I don't know why.
Yeah.
So I still think I try to portray I've got my shit together. And maybe I've got 80% of my shit together.
Yeah.
But inside, sometimes I feel that I'm portraying that and I don't quite have it together.
Yeah. But do you feel okay with that?
I think so, yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I feel centred
Good.
now as a person.
Yeah.
And yes, I feel centred and I feel
Yeah.
okay with myself.
Yeah. And it comes back to what you were saying at the beginning of you're not chasing something in the same way. It's more just about accepting where you are. And,
Yes. Not feeling I had to be on a different journey or a different route to the one, not feeling I was being derailed, but feeling I wanted just to follow my own true path and feeling now, well, you did.
Yeah. And in light of everything that you've been through, you now have a wonderful partner.
I do.
And you go on holidays.
We do. We've been
And you
together
get to check into nice
37
hotels.
years. We check into lovely hotels.
Yeah.
Will you think about me next time you go into a hotel and you run
Absolutely.
around?
I'm
And
going to steal the biscuits and...
why do they put all those cushions on the bed? I can't understand it. Because you could throw them all off. But yeah, no, I like that moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I would say other people would say definitely.
Yeah.
But, and I'd like to portray it. And I think I've come on a long journey.
Yeah.
So I think generally probably I have got my shit together now.
Well, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast.
You're welcome. It's been great fun.
I've got you a Peter badge.
Does the Desert Island disc music come on now?
Do-do-do.